Pause here for a moment, because if these words have found you today, perhaps this is not an accident at all. There are moments that quietly pass through ordinary time, and there are moments that seem to arrive carrying a deeper purpose. This feels like one of those moments. Before your mind rushes ahead or your doubts begin to whisper that this message is meant for someone else, simply remain here for another breath. There is something unfolding beyond what your eyes can see, and whether you realize it or not, your heart has been searching for this kind of reassurance for longer than you remember. You have wondered if your silent prayers disappeared into empty skies. You have questioned whether the hopes you carried so carefully still mattered. Yet even in the hours when you believed nothing was changing, movements were already taking place beyond your awareness. Not every answer announces itself with thunder. Sometimes the greatest turning points begin with a decision made in complete silence. Today, I invite you to listen not with fear, but with expectation. Let your thoughts settle. Let your heart become still enough to recognize what has been quietly approaching all along. There is someone whose journey has crossed yours in ways neither of you fully understands. Their path has been shaped by choices, delays, unexpected detours, and moments of hesitation. More than once they believed the distance between you could never be closed. More than once they convinced themselves that letting go would be easier than continuing to hope. Yet something changed. Not because the world suddenly became simple. Not because every obstacle disappeared overnight. But because a truth finally reached them that could no longer be ignored. For a long time they carried questions they never spoke aloud. They searched for certainty in places that could never satisfy the longing inside them. They listened to opinions that pulled them away from what their own spirit was trying to reveal. Every distraction promised clarity, yet each one left them feeling emptier than before. Then came a quiet moment unlike any they had experienced. No crowd surrounded them. No celebration marked the occasion. No one applauded the choice they were about to make. It happened in the stillness, where the loudest voices finally faded and only honesty remained. Sometimes the most important decisions are invisible to everyone except heaven. That unseen moment has begun sending ripples farther than they realize. You may think nothing around you looks different today. The familiar places remain familiar. The routine of your life appears unchanged. Yet beneath the surface, pieces are beginning to move into places they have never occupied before. Do not mistake quietness for absence. Seeds grow beneath the soil long before anyone celebrates the harvest. Rivers reshape landscapes without asking permission. Morning begins long before the first ray of sunlight reaches the horizon. In the same way, what has already begun cannot be measured by appearances alone. There were nights when you questioned your own worth. You replayed conversations in your mind, wondering if you had somehow missed your opportunity. You looked backward searching for the moment everything seemed to drift apart. But what if those endings were never the true ending? What if they were only preparing both hearts for a different beginning? This question has been waiting for you. Not because every story unfolds the same way, but because hope often survives where certainty cannot. There are chapters people believe are finished simply because they cannot see the next page being written. Yet the author of every season has never abandoned the story halfway through. Your heart has carried invisible scars. Some came from disappointment. Others came from promises that faded before they could become reality. Every disappointment taught you to protect yourself a little more. Every unanswered question built another wall around your expectations. Still, despite everything, a small part of you refused to stop believing that something beautiful remained possible. Protect that quiet hope. It has carried you farther than you know. Meanwhile, another heart has been wrestling with truths they tried to outrun. They filled empty spaces with distractions. They convinced themselves that keeping busy would silence the questions inside them. They smiled when others were watching, yet silence always brought them back to the same realization. There was one person they could never completely forget. Not because memory refused to fade, but because every attempt to move forward somehow reminded them of what still remained unfinished within. The decision they made was not impulsive. It was not born from loneliness. It was not created by pressure from anyone around them. It came after reflection. After humility. After facing parts of themselves they had hidden for far too long. Growth often begins when pride finally grows tired of carrying its own weight. You have been asking for signs. Sometimes signs do not arrive as dramatic events. Sometimes they arrive as unexpected peace. Sometimes they appear as closed doors that quietly protect you from taking the wrong path. Sometimes they begin inside another person's heart before you ever notice them in your own life. This is why patience is never wasted. While you counted days, unseen preparation continued. While you wondered whether your prayers mattered, answers were already taking shape beyond your sight. You are not being asked to force tomorrow into existence. You are being invited to trust today's quiet unfolding. There is wisdom in waiting that hurried hearts rarely understand. Many people chase immediate certainty. Few are willing to embrace the mystery that often comes before genuine transformation. Yet mystery is not always confusion. Sometimes mystery is simply the space where hope is learning to breathe again. The decision that has been made is only the beginning. What follows will require courage, honesty, and timing that cannot be rushed. Even now, pieces remain hidden for reasons that will become clearer when the moment is right. If every answer arrived at once, faith would never have room to grow. So remain attentive. Remain hopeful. Because what seems ordinary today may soon reveal itself as the first step towards something neither heart expected. And the most astonishing part is that the decision itself was only the beginning of what heaven intends to reveal. There are moments when silence carries more meaning than 1,000 conversations. This is one of those moments. The decision that was made did not begin with certainty, it began with surrender. Long before anyone could see a change on the outside, something shifted deep within a heart that had been resisting its own truth. For so long, they searched for reasons to walk away from what they felt. They convinced themselves that distance would erase the memories. They believed that time alone could untangle every emotion. Yet every attempt to silence what mattered only made the quiet moments speak louder. That is the mystery of a heart that has been transformed. It can ignore many voices, but eventually it must answer the one that has patiently waited beneath every distraction. You have wondered why certain doors remained closed. You questioned why some conversations never happened, why certain days ended with more questions than answers. What you could not see was that every delay was shaping both journeys differently. One was learning patience. The other was learning honesty. Neither lesson could be rushed. If they had arrived too early, neither heart would have recognized the value of what stood before them. So the days continued. The seasons quietly turned. Life appeared ordinary. Yet beneath every ordinary moment, invisible preparation continued without applause. There were mornings when they remembered your kindness without expecting to. There were evenings when your name quietly crossed their thoughts while the world around them carried on as though nothing unusual had happened. They tried to dismiss those moments as coincidence, but the pattern refused to disappear. The more they listened, the clearer everything became. Not because every question was answered, but because they finally stopped running from the questions themselves. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not that circumstances suddenly change. Sometimes the miracle is that a heart finally becomes willing to see what has been true all along. Perhaps you have experienced something similar. Perhaps there were moments when peace gently interrupted your worries for reasons you could not explain. Perhaps you felt encouraged even when nothing around you had changed. Those moments were not meaningless. Hope often arrives quietly before visible change ever appears. Do not underestimate what can begin in stillness. The world celebrates loud victories, but heaven often begins its greatest stories in whispered moments of courage. There is another detail that has remained hidden until now. The decision they made was not only about choosing a direction. It was about releasing something they had carried for far too long. Old fears. Old expectations. Old disappointments. They realized those burdens could no longer guide tomorrow. Freedom always asks us to let go before it allows us to move forward. That is never easy. Yet they chose it anyway. While this was unfolding, you continued living your own life, unaware that another chapter had already begun somewhere beyond your sight. You kept showing kindness even when you felt unnoticed. You kept growing through seasons that tested your patience. You continued becoming the person you were meant to be, even when no one seemed to recognize the quiet strength it required. Nothing about that journey has been wasted. Every lesson became part of your preparation. Every challenge shaped your character. Every unanswered prayer taught you to trust beyond what your eyes could measure. There are times when you believe you are waiting. In truth, you are becoming. That difference changes everything. Imagine standing before the sunrise while the sky is still dark. Someone beside you might say that morning is nowhere to be found. Yet you would know that light is already on its way even though it has not reached the horizon. Faith often feels exactly like that. Not pretending darkness does not exist, but believing light has already begun its journey. The one whose heart has changed does not yet understand every step ahead. They do not possess every answer. They are still learning what courage looks like when it is lived instead of imagined. Even so, they no longer wish to hide from what they know. That alone has changed the direction of their path. And because one choice influences another, the story itself has begun to move in ways neither of you could have predicted. Be careful not to measure tomorrow by yesterday's disappointments. Yesterday belongs to lessons. Tomorrow belongs to possibility. Your spirit has grown stronger than you realize. There were days you believed you had reached your limit, yet somehow you continued. There were nights when you thought hope had become too heavy to carry, yet morning still found you moving forward one small step at a time. Strength is often discovered long before it is recognized. The same is true for purpose. Many people search endlessly for extraordinary signs while overlooking extraordinary faithfulness in ordinary days. Do not overlook what has already been placed within you. Compassion, patience, gentleness, resilience. These gifts rarely receive loud applause, yet they become the foundation upon which lasting relationships are built. Someone has begun to recognize those qualities with fresh eyes. Not because you suddenly became different, but because their own vision has changed. Transformation often begins there. Not with a new reality. With a new perspective. That perspective has already begun opening doors that once seemed permanently closed. Still, this is not the end of the story. Another layer remains unseen. There is a conversation that has not yet taken place. There is a truth that has not yet been spoken aloud. There is a moment drawing closer when hesitation will meet courage, and silence will finally give way to honesty. Until then, remain steady. Do not allow impatience to convince you that nothing is happening. The deepest roots grow where no one is watching. And just when it seems that everything has become still, another unexpected revelation begins to unfold, one that neither of you saw coming, and it will change the meaning of the decision in ways that have yet to be revealed. A quiet turning point is approaching, though it does not announce itself with noise or spectacle. It moves with the gentleness of dawn, almost unnoticed by those who are distracted, yet unmistakable to a heart that has learned to listen. Stay with these words a little longer, because what is unfolding cannot be understood by looking only at what has already happened. The story is still revealing itself. There was a moment, not long ago, when they found themselves completely alone. The world around them continued as usual, but inside, everything had become still. In that silence, memories returned one after another, not as painful reminders, but as gentle invitations to see the past through different eyes. They remembered conversations they once dismissed. They remembered acts of kindness they had overlooked. They remembered the peace they felt whenever thoughts of you appeared, even if they tried to explain it away. For the first time, they stopped asking, "What if I am wrong?" and quietly began asking, "What if I have been running from the truth?" That single question changed everything. Sometimes transformation begins with a question instead of an answer. For so long they believed they needed perfect certainty before taking another step. They waited for every doubt to disappear, every fear to fade, every circumstance to become easy. But wisdom whispered something unexpected. Courage is not the absence of uncertainty, it is choosing what is right even when every detail has not yet been revealed. As that realization settled into their heart, the weight they had carried for so long began to lift. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But little by little, like clouds slowly parting after a long season of rain. While this was happening, you continued moving through your own days, unaware that another chapter had quietly begun. There were moments when you almost gave up expecting anything meaningful. You smiled even while carrying questions no one else could see. You kept walking forward, even when the road seemed strangely quiet. Never believe those quiet seasons were empty. Some of life's greatest preparations happen where human eyes cannot measure them. There is a reason patience often feels difficult. It stretches the heart beyond what comfort allows. Yet every season of waiting has been shaping something within you that cannot be rushed. Compassion has become deeper. Wisdom has become steadier. Discernment has become clearer. You may not notice these changes every day, but they have become part of who you are. Growth often hides inside ordinary days. The decision they made continues sending unseen ripples outward. One honest choice has begun opening doors that fear kept locked for far too long. They have started releasing expectations that once controlled them. They are beginning to understand that real peace is never found by pretending feelings do not exist. Peace grows wherever honesty is welcomed. Even now, they are noticing little reminders that unexpectedly bring your name into their thoughts. A familiar place. A passing melody. A quiet sunset. A simple conversation. None of these moments force anything. They simply invite reflection, and reflection has become impossible to ignore. There is no need to chase what is already being prepared. There is no need to force what must unfold with wisdom instead of haste. Many hearts become weary because they confuse waiting with being forgotten. You have not been forgotten. Every sincere prayer, every tear that no one else witnessed, every hopeful whisper spoken into the quiet has mattered more than you realize. Nothing offered with love is ever wasted. Even when answers seem delayed, purpose continues moving. There is another layer to this story that remains hidden for now. Someone close to them has begun noticing the change. They cannot fully explain it, but they see a new calm replacing old confusion. They notice that old conversations no longer carry the same bitterness. They recognize that something inside has shifted, though they cannot name it. Transformation always leaves quiet evidence behind. Not loud announcements. Not dramatic displays. But gentle changes that speak louder than words. This is only the beginning. The path ahead still holds unexpected turns. Some moments will invite courage. Others will require humility. Both hearts still have lessons to learn before every piece fits together. Do not become discouraged because the entire picture is not visible today. A painter does not reveal every color with the first brushstroke. A composer does not begin with the final note. Every masterpiece unfolds one careful moment at a time. The same is true here. What seems incomplete today may one day become the very reason you understand why every season unfolded exactly as it did. Keep your heart open. Keep choosing kindness. Keep walking with quiet confidence rather than anxious striving. There is strength in trusting that not every answer must arrive immediately. There is beauty in allowing hope to remain alive without demanding constant proof. Soon, another unexpected moment will arrive, one neither of you planned. It will seem ordinary to everyone else, yet it will carry significance that only time will fully reveal. A single conversation, a single unexpected encounter. A single sentence spoken with sincerity, will begin connecting pieces that have remained scattered for far too long. And when that moment finally comes, you will understand that the decision made in silence was never the final revelation. It was only the first door. Beyond it waits another truth, one that has remained hidden until the exact moment both hearts are finally ready to receive it. To be continued. Not every door opens with a sound. Some begin to move so quietly that only a patient heart notices the change. What has been unfolding until now has not depended on chance, nor has it been driven by haste. Every moment has been preparing the next, even when neither of you could recognize the pattern. There will come a day when you look back on this season and realize that what felt like waiting was actually becoming. The questions that once filled your mind will not disappear because someone else answered them. They will fade because peace will quietly take their place. The one whose heart has changed has started seeing the world differently. They no longer measure every step by fear or every possibility by past disappointments. Instead, they have begun noticing the small reminders that hope leaves behind. A sunrise that seemed brighter than usual. A familiar path that suddenly felt meaningful. A quiet evening that invited reflection instead of distraction. These moments may appear ordinary to anyone watching from the outside, yet they have become gentle invitations to pause and listen. Sometimes the deepest insights arrive when life becomes quiet enough for the heart to speak honestly. You have also been changing. Perhaps you did not notice it at first. Growth rarely announces itself. It appears in the way you respond with patience where you once reacted with frustration. It appears in the kindness you continue to offer, even after experiencing disappointment. It appears in the courage to keep believing that goodness is still possible, even when circumstances have tested your confidence. Those quiet victories matter. They are shaping the person you are becoming. There is a tendency to believe that extraordinary moments must always be dramatic, but many of life's greatest turning points begin with simple choices repeated faithfully. A gentle word. A forgiving heart. A willingness to keep moving forward without bitterness. These are the foundations upon which lasting peace is built. Meanwhile, another realization has begun unfolding within them. They have started recognizing that every attempt to outrun their deepest convictions only led them back to the same place. The answers they searched for elsewhere were never as satisfying as the quiet truth they had tried to avoid. Recognition is powerful. Acceptance is even more powerful. As acceptance grows, fear begins losing the influence it once held. What seemed impossible starts appearing within reach, not because every obstacle disappears, but because courage quietly grows stronger than hesitation. Do not rush ahead in your imagination. Do not allow uncertainty to convince you that nothing is happening. The story is still unfolding one page at a time, and every page has its purpose. There are conversations yet to come. There are lessons still being learned. There are moments of unexpected clarity waiting just beyond today's horizon. When those moments arrive, they will not erase every challenge. Instead, they will reveal that every challenge carried a lesson you could not have learned any other way. This journey has never been about perfection. It has always been about transformation. And transformation asks for patience. It asks for humility. It asks for hope that remains steady even when tomorrow cannot yet be seen. Soon, something unexpected will invite both of you to look beyond old assumptions. A simple moment, one that others might overlook, will quietly reveal how much has already changed beneath the surface. Neither of you will fully understand its significance at first. Only later will you recognize that this ordinary moment marked the beginning of an entirely new chapter. And as that chapter begins to unfold, another truth, one hidden until now, will gently come into the light, revealing that the journey ahead is greater than either of you imagined.